You buy a Domino's franchise, and within 2 years, you're driving a nicer car than your old boss. That's the dream version. Here's the real one. In July 2020, the largest Pizza Hut franchisee in America filed for bankruptcy, carrying $903 million in debt across 1,227 stores that all looked exactly this profitable on paper. Here is what this actually costs. A traditional Domino's store starts with a franchise fee of $10,000, though some territories carry an additional $25,000 reservation fee just to hold the location before you've poured a single dollar into the building. Then comes construction and leasehold improvements, typically $200,000 to $400,000, depending on whether you're building out a bare shell or converting an existing space. Kitchen equipment, ovens, prep tables, delivery vehicles or vehicle stipends, and point-of-sale hardware add another $80,000 to $150,000. Opening inventory, uniforms, signage, and pre-opening training run $15,000 to $30,000 more. Then the part nobody puts in their napkin math: general liability insurance, commercial auto coverage for delivery drivers, workers' compensation bonds, and local health and business licensing, which together commonly add $10,000 to $25,000 before the doors open. Domino's own 2025 franchise disclosure document lists the total estimated initial investment for a traditional store at $156,450 to $743,500, and non-traditional locations, the ones inside stadiums or airports, start lower at $107,450. You also need $75,000 in liquid capital and a $250,000 net worth just to qualify. Capital you cannot touch once it's tied up in the application. Training alone runs close to 10 weeks at a corporate training center. Unpaid time most first-time buyers never price into their break-even math, and most candidates aren't even eligible to apply without a minimum of 12 months working as a general manager inside an existing Domino's store first. The real entry number, all in, before you've sold a single pizza, up to $743,500. Once the store is open, the bleeding starts on a weekly schedule. Royalty fee, 5.5% of gross sales, paid every single week by electronic transfer, because Domino's corporate gets paid whether you turn a profit or not. National Advertising Fund contribution, 6% of sales, funding the commercials you see during football games, a mandatory line item you have zero control over. Combined, that's 11.5% of revenue gone before you've paid for a single ingredient. Food cost is next. Cheese, dough, sauce, and toppings for a pizza chain typically run 22 to 28% of sales, and Domino's franchisees report closer to the top of that range because corporate mandates supplier pricing through its vertically integrated supply chain. Labor is the next major stack. 25 to 30% of revenue for a delivery-driven pizza concept, covering in-store staff and delivery drivers. Occupancy, rent, utilities, and maintenance for a small footprint delivery store typically consume another 6 to 9%. Packaging, boxes, bags, and delivery supplies add roughly 2 to 3%. Third-party delivery platform commissions, when a franchisee routes orders through Uber Eats or DoorDash, can run 15 to 30% on those specific orders, a cost most projections quietly leave out. Add technology fees, point-of-sale subscriptions, and driver vehicle reimbursement, and the full operating cost stack on a typical location lands between 88 and 95% of gross sales before ownership pays itself anything. Here's what real revenue looks like. Domino's 2025 franchise disclosure document reports median annual unit revenue of $1,308,320 for fiscal year 2024, based on actual reported sales across the U.S. franchise system, not a marketing projection. Run that store at a combined royalty and ad fund cost of 11.5%. That's $150,457 gone immediately. Food cost at 27% takes another $353,246. Labor at 27% takes $353,246 more. Occupancy at 7% takes $91,582. Packaging and technology fees take roughly $40,000 combined. Total that stack and you've spent approximately $988,531 to generate $119,320 in revenue, leaving $319,789 before insurance, debt service, and owner labor. That's a 24.4% gross operating margin, and once loan payments on that $156,450 to $743,500 initial investment come out, along with the owner's own unpaid hours running the store, net margin for a leveraged single-unit operator commonly compresses to 10 to 15%. On a business generating over $1 million in sales, the owner can end up clearing less than a mid-level corporate salary. Cheese is the single most volatile line item on a pizza chain's income statement, and it isn't set by any restaurant, it's set daily on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. In June 2021, block cheddar, the benchmark price that mozzarella tracks, bottomed out at $1.4575 per pound. By August 15, 2021, less than 10 weeks later, it had crossed $2.00 per pound, a rise of more than 37% with zero warning and zero ability for a franchisee to hedge it mid-lease. It's happened before at even greater scale. In 2007, block cheese jumped 78% year over year, from $1.17 to $2.08 a pound, forcing Pizza Hut and Papa John's to raise menu prices industry-wide just to stay solvent. Unlike a commodities trader, a franchisee cannot hedge this exposure. Menu prices are set months in advance, often require sign-off tied to national promotions, and a single store owner has no futures contract protecting them from a cheese market that moves in weeks, not quarters. Because food cost already consumes roughly a quarter of every sales dollar, a cheese spike of that size alone can add 3 to 5 percentage points to total cost of goods, which on a $1.3 million location is $39,000 to $65,000 in margin gone in a single quarter, with no mechanism to pass the increase to customers fast enough to matter. NPC International was the largest Pizza Hut franchisee in the world and the largest Wendy's operator in the country, running 1,227 Pizza Hut locations and 393 Wendy's restaurants at its peak, a company founded in 1962 that had survived nearly 6 decades in the industry. The trigger was debt. NPC carried close to $903 million in loans, taken on to fund acquisitions and required remodels during an aggressive franchise lending environment through the 2010s. In January 2020, the company missed an interest payment. Credit rating agencies downgraded its debt within weeks. When it asked Pizza Hut for the same remodel deferral other franchisees received, the brand denied the request, according to NPC's own bankruptcy filing. On July 1, 2020, NPC filed for Chapter 11, citing years of market share loss to Domino's and Papa John's, both of which had invested earlier in delivery technology, while NPC remained anchored to weaker-performing dine-in locations. Under the restructuring, NPC closed 300 of its Pizza Hut stores, roughly a quarter of its footprint, and by November 2020 sold what remained to Flynn Restaurant Group for $816 million. This was not one bad manager making one bad call. This was thin per-unit margins, rising labor and food costs, and debt service colliding at the same moment, structural pressure that a single operator's skill could not outrun. Here's a cost that almost never appears on a franchise projection: delivery driver vehicle reimbursement. Drivers use their own cars, and the IRS business mileage rate, meant to reasonably approximate the true cost of owning and operating a vehicle, has ranged between 53.5 and 58 cents per mile in recent years. Court filings across dozens of Domino's franchisee lawsuits show reimbursement rates as low as 20 to 35 cents per mile, sometimes less than half the real cost. Walk through one delivery that looks profitable on the schedule. A driver paid federal minimum wage completes a 5-mile round-trip delivery in 15 minutes. At a 30-cent reimbursement rate, that trip pays the driver $1.50 toward vehicle costs. At the true IRS rate, the same trip costs roughly $2.75 to $2.90 to actually operate the car, factoring gas, depreciation, maintenance, and insurance. That $1.25 to $1.40 gap, repeated dozens of times a shift across every driver, isn't just an underpayment, it's a federal minimum wage violation once it's subtracted from gross pay, and it's the exact mechanism behind a wave of class action lawsuits against Domino's franchisees in New Jersey, New York, Iowa, Michigan, Colorado, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Massachusetts. Wage and hour litigation against Domino's franchisees has produced real, collected settlements, not theoretical exposure. A Colorado franchisee, Jerink Limited, paid $1.8 million to settle underpaid mileage claims in 2021. A North and South Carolina franchisee paid $3 million in a similar case. A Michigan franchisee settled for $1.95 million in 2022. Separately, court records cite a $2.3 million reinstated award tied to vicarious liability for a delivery driver accident, the kind of judgment that attaches directly to the franchisee, not the parent brand, because the driver is legally the franchisee's employee. As of the most recent franchise disclosure document, Domino's discloses roughly 40 active litigation matters system-wide under Item 3, a number well above the norm for a franchise of its size. A single location franchisee generating $1.3 million a year in revenue cannot absorb a $2 million judgment, and standard general liability policies frequently exclude or cap this exact category of employment claim, leaving the owner's personal assets exposed. This is not a slow leak. This can end the business in a single event. Some things get easier as a franchisee scales into multiple units. Corporate overhead spreads across more stores, scheduling and delivery routing get more efficient, and area development agreements let an established operator claim territory before outside buyers can. But other things get harder in direct proportion to unit count. Debt service on acquisitions compounds. Compliance exposure, especially the wage and hour and mileage reimbursement risk from Section 7, doesn't stay flat, it multiplies by every driver on every route across every store. NPC International is the proof. The same structure that made it the largest Pizza Hut operator in the country made a single missed interest payment catastrophic across 1,227 locations at once. At a certain scale, this stops being a pizza store and becomes a leveraged debt vehicle that happens to sell pizza. The single-unit owner-operator and the 1,000-unit franchise group are technically running the same brand, the same royalty rate, and the same menu, but they are exposed to entirely different categories of risk, and the tools that protect one, like hands-on daily supervision, simply don't scale to the other. Independent data on Domino's franchise failure puts the first-year failure rate around 1%, and it stays near 1% by year 3, remarkably low for food service. But that statistic describes vetted, internally promoted single or small multi-unit operators, not debt-financed roll-ups like NPC. The primary cause of failure in this system is never described as bad pizza-making skill. It's structural. Over-leveraged acquisition debt, deferred maintenance obligations, and unmanaged wage and hour exposure. 5 habits separate survivors from the next bankruptcy filing. First, they came up through the system as general managers for at least a year before buying in, exactly as Domino's requires, rather than entering as outside capital with no operating experience. Second, they reimburse drivers at or above the IRS mileage rate proactively, treating it as insurance against a 6- or 7-figure settlement rather than a line item to shave down for short-term savings. Third, they keep liquidity reserves above the $75,000 minimum instead of financing every dollar of expansion, so a single bad quarter doesn't force a missed loan payment. Fourth, they fund remodels on schedule instead of requesting deferrals that damage standing with the franchisor exactly when leverage gets tight, the same deferral request that was denied to NPC. Fifth, they resist multi-unit acquisition growth financed primarily with debt, expanding only as retained cash flow allows, rather than borrowing against future stores that don't exist yet to buy the next batch of existing ones. That nicer car in the opening image gets paid for eventually, but on this business, only after 5.5%, 6%, 27%, and every hidden mile reimbursement gap gets paid first, on a store that in a bad year clears less margin than the corporate salary its owner walked away from. The core argument of everything above is this: Domino's franchise economics are not broken, they are simply thin enough that one bad commodity cycle, one lawsuit, or one over-leveraged acquisition is the difference between a solid small business and NPC International's $903 million collapse. Every number in this breakdown came from the same place: a public filing, a court record, or a commodity exchange, not a franchise sales deck. If you want the next forensic breakdown before it publishes, subscribe now.